What do you do when gear fails on the trail? Well, first of all, you should try to prevent that from happening by testing your gear before you actually take it out on the trail. Prevention is number one. I have actually had gear fail on the trail before. When I was through hiking the SHT, I had a water filter go out and I had to spend 2 days trying to get off the trail, which led to one amazing adventure. But what actually happened is I was using a pump filter, and I've used pump filters throughout the past mostly instead of other options, but this particular pump filter, yes, I did test it. It decided to stop working completely. It was so clogged that you could not pump anything out of it. It only lasted me 10 days. That was horrible. So your situation is always going to be different. The different kinds of gear that fails, the trail, the climate, the weather, everything is going to make your situation unique. But I can tell you what happened to me when my water filter decided to cut out. I was trying to pump the thing and it would not work at all. It was completely seized up, completely useless. So what do you do in that situation? Well, unless you have a backup water filter, which in a through hike situation is just extra weight, how are you going to filter the water? Well, you got to boil it. Boiling the water is going to be the only safe way to drink that water. But there's one thing that you probably aren't going to realize. If you have one cook pot, and that is what you're doing all of your cooking out of, your water that you'll be drinking is going to taste like warm dishwater, and it is horrible. It's hard to stomach, but hey, it works. It will keep you hydrated. But the biggest problem of all of this is the fact that it is going to take a long time for you to boil all of that water. Now, with the temperatures that I was facing, it was taking me 2 hours to treat 2 liters of water. Because what do you have to do? You have to collect the water, you have to boil it, you have to wait for the water to cool down, and then stick it into a water container and repeat the process. It took 2 hours to boil 2 liters of water. Now, that's not logical in a through hike situation, because boiling water in the morning, boiling water once or twice while throughout the day, and boiling again at night could mean you're waiting on water for 8 hours a day. That is quite simply not logical when you're trying to go 12 plus miles per day. So I determined that the best bet is just to get off the trail and go get another water filter. Stop down in the city, grab one, come back up. But it wasn't that simple. I went to my first trailhead, and it was off of a backcountry road, completely deserted. Nobody there, no cars. I waited for like a half hour, nothing. So I determined that the only way that I'm going to be able to hitchhike out of there is from a main road. The main road was 2 days away through strenuous terrain. A lot of elevation gain on this route. So I did it. I boiled water in the morning, and I was going through George Crosby Manitou State Park, and I stopped at the parking lot. I figured, okay, maybe somebody here is going north so I can get to my car. I waited, nothing. Eventually somebody came around. They were going south after their hike, but they did have a bunch of bottled water, and they let me fill up my water bottles with that bottled water. I didn't want to take the water bottles with me, obviously, because it's just extra weight and more trash to go on the trail, which, pack it in, pack it out. So if it wasn't for that person giving me water, I would not have been able to even make it to Caribou River. I did end up making it. I was very thirsty at the end when I got to Caribou River, and I spent the rest of the day boiling more water so I could drink. There wasn't very many people at Caribou River, so I decided that I would just camp there, and then I would hike the couple miles down to 61, because that is the main route for everybody going up to the North Shore and higher. The next day, I spend another 2 hours boiling, because who knows how far I'm going to have to go on this journey hitchhiking, and I make it down to the trailhead, and I wait there for not very long, actually. It was surprising how fast I was able to get my first ride. It was a guy who worked in Lutsen, and he drove me up to the resort where he worked, and I then decided to just start moving up 61, hoping for another one, holding my thumb out, It wasn't going very well getting round 2 started. So, fortunately, there was this guy in an RV heading up. I believe Memorial Weekend was coming up, so he was heading up for the holiday. And he gave me a ride up to the parking area off of 61 that is for Cascade River State Park. And I hiked back to my car from there. Man, I was happy to be there because having to drink warm water that tastes like dishwater after drinking very nice, clean, clear river water that was nice and cool, I went to something that was very hard to stomach, and just thinking about it was just, it's nasty, all right? It's nasty. So from there, I went to the city, and I decided to pick up a Sawyer Squeeze, which I do not regret that decision at all. It's a lot more convenient than you think. I came from pump filters, so I was used to just pumping, but filling up a bag and then squeezing it is a lot more simple, and it doesn't take nearly as much energy as having to pump through a filter, especially when a filter starts getting towards the end of its lifespan. It's going to be a lot harder to pump. I ended up going back to that parking area off of 61 after parking my car at Cascade River State Park, and I ended up managing to hitch my way back to the Caribou River to start off exactly where I left off. Isn't that awesome? Your situation could be very different, and every single situation you might have in the future will all be different than one another. The point is that you need to be able to adapt to the situation that you are in. You need to know what solutions you have if a piece of your gear fails. And you also need to be able to get off of the trail if you need to get off of the trail. If you have a spot device, you might be able to send out a message to have somebody bring you something or pick you up. If you have cell service, you might be able to call somebody. I actually called 2 shuttle services while I was out there. It was a Sunday, so I didn't get a response back at all. Of course, if it's an emergency and you have cell service, you could call emergency services. My situation was not an emergency, but it could very easily have turned into an emergency because water is crucial. If you don't have water and the next water source is too far away, you can die. So if you find yourself in that situation, just stop and think, what is the best path to take? You should already have some sort of survival knowledge. If you're spending that much time in the wilderness, utilize those skills. I'm Wandering Kevin. Life's an adventure, so get out there and start living.